Anna Gordon with WBGO, and today I have the absolute honor of interviewing the animator, writer, producer, director, and musician Craig Bartlett, along with the insanely talented composer Jim Lang. If these names look familiar, it's because you, like me, grew up watching the jazziest Nicktoon to ever exist, Hey Arnold, which premiered on this day in 1996. So today we'll be discussing the iconic music that centered the show as one of the coolest cartoons of the 1990s. Craig and Jim, thank you both so much for joining us. How does it feel to be sitting here 29 years after your iconic show premiered?
Oh, it's so great. We enjoyed making it 29 years ago, and actually a couple years before that when we were getting it going. But it's somehow even better now because the love for it has matured, and people tell me about it all the time in a way that I wasn't receiving that kind of input when we were doing it, except from people like Jim.
Well, and who would have thought back then, in the nascent days of the internet, that we would have this ability to get the feedback that we get from people to whom the show was really important back in the day. It's such a, I mean, people say I'm blessed a lot, but boy, what a blessing to be able to hear that. Never thought, when we were doing it back then, Craig, who
No
knew?
clue.
Yeah, no clue.
We didn't know it would last. We didn't know that we'd get more seasons. We didn't know anything. And there was a wonderful, as soon as it started to happen and we started to get episodes back, Field Trip, which I'll happily talk about. But watching Field Trip and going, oh God, this is really cool. This is like sadder and weirder than, we've got our little corner of the animation world. We have something that isn't like the other shows because it's so emotional and sad. I was like, well, this is working, and it was working for us. But now we know, 29 years later, we know in a really articulate way how it has affected, how it was affecting the kids then.
It certainly has. I mean, 29 years ago, I remember vividly that day. I remember sitting there with my friends watching the show that would ultimately inspire me for the rest of my life because here I am at WBGO. I was telling you guys before, I didn't grow up with jazz in my household, and that was really my first introduction to it, and it all came together. And I think, a lot of us just wanted to be Arnold and his really cool room. And, we actually have a little remote in our house that turns on all the lights, and it's like, it's very Hey Arnold code.
Yay.
Thank you both for this full circle moment. Very surreal on this 29th anniversary of Hey Arnold. When people think of cartoons and jazz, I think that Vince Guaraldi comes to mind a lot. Would you say
Absolutely.
that he inspired you?
Thing that I had forgotten until I watched Charlie Brown's Christmas again last year is that stuff, the music that's in there was not, at least as far as I could tell from watching it, was not scored. It was written for the show, but then it was performed by the ensemble. And then they just kind of unceremoniously just dump the music when they're done with the scene. But that's also really interesting because that was legit stuff that was kind of improvised, right? And so it gives it an extra secret sauce, I think,
Yeah.
that some other things don't
Yeah.
have. I also want to give a shout out to Johnny Costa, who was the piano player who did Mr. Rogers, who
Oh,
live
yeah.
scored Mr. Rogers every episode of that, because that Johnny Costa was a monster. And the music is really soft and sweet and gentle. It's not banging at all, but it's also it's jazz language, and it's really
Yeah.
improvisational. So you know hats off to him too.
Beautiful to be a part of such a jazz cartoon legacy. Did you grow up on jazz yourself? Were you a jazz head going into this project?
I came up really more from R&B. um I was in all kinds of bands. The first high school or junior high band that I was in actually was, we played all kind of British invasion stuff. And then when I got into high school, I was in this band called the Fabulous Sensations. but it was it was uh, a really reasonably accomplished band full of white kids from the suburbs playing James Brown and Sam and Dave and Wilson Pickett and Otis Redding and everything we could get our hands on. My dad liked jazz, and there was some jazz vinyl in the house. Oscar Peterson, he was a huge Oscar Peterson fan, so I listened to a ton of Oscar Peterson. And really, the seminal piece of music for me, the thing that really turned the lights on, was Rhapsody in Blue, which I had that played for me. I think I was probably 7 years old, and the music teacher in my grade school sat us all down one day. And you talk about the top of your head blowing off. It's like, that's amazing. And I went home, and there was an LP of Rhapsody in Blue, and I snagged that record. I took it upstairs and I put it on my Hopalong Cassidy record player and played it over and over and over until I'm sure there was absolutely no vinyl left on the surface of the record.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love that.
But that was the deal. That's what really started it all out for me. And still today, just even when United Airlines was using it, I used to tear up every time I'd see a United Airlines commercial, because that music.
Jim, what was your favorite? Was it the was that your favorite part?
I love the grand the thing that they
Oh my
use.
God, right?
Yeah. And interestingly too, the recording, I can't remember now who it was. I think it might have been Eugene Ormandy, but they played it much, much slower than probably even Gershwin and Paul Whiteman did, back in the day when they originally played it, because you hear that Gershwin's piano recordings of it, he's jamming.
He kind of blazes through it, doesn't he?
Yeah, because that was his deal. I mean, he was a bravura piano player that made his bones demonstrating songs, in a sheet music shop. So he would play fast and very florid versions of all these things to impress the customer. So anyway, I love the big expansive when it slows down, and then also the introduction. I mean, that the clarinet glissando, which we quoted in the first Hey Arnold movie, to great effect, I might add. That's such a lovely moment too.
That's so cool. And Craig, you as well? Did it start in childhood?
Yeah, I really got more into jazz in my 20s. I realized once I kind of got out of the house and got out on my own and started actually actively collecting music, and it wasn't just under the influence of our tiny record player and my two older sisters who had great musical taste. I can remember my sister bringing home Sly and the Family Stone's greatest hits, and I played the vinyl off of that one too.
There you go.
I like that he mentioned James Brown too, because even the Arnold pilot, we have we do a little James Brown knockoff because we couldn't license anything, and we couldn't get, we got a James Brown sound-alike.
I remember that.
And don't hit me, I'll hit me. Just me trying to just quote James Brown, I really deeply got into him for a while there. And I was listening to a lot of Miles Davis when we got the opportunity to make the pilot, the Hey Arnold pilot in 1994. Jim and I had met in about 89, I think, or 90. We made several World's Fair films together for a special venue film company in Burbank that does things like interactive shows and World's Fairs, and just basically anything that's got like a weird screen or some kind of weird projection. That was his thing. Really hit it off. We thought about the same things, and they're enjoying he trying to put humor in it, which is really where cartoons shine. The music that's funny and kind of commenting on what's going on is what animation music is all about. Really, we barely had a chance to get into it till we got Hey Arnold. Then it was insane. We had 8 years of working together with a bunch of new stuff to score all the time. and the most amazing thing about Jim's work is his just giant quiver of every kind of music. He can really do it all. And he can do sad so well, and he can do horror so well, and he can do action. Let's do action like a 50s black and white thing, or let's do action like, a big thundering modern, 90s action pick. Any of that stuff. Let's do Apocalypse Now. Let's do Jimi Hendrix.
It's the mark of a true composer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cut to me shivering in terror in the studio trying to figure out how to get that sound.
Yeah, we were all, it's funny. Jim was kind of working in Echo Park in his studio on Baxter, and the rest of us were all in a group together, so we could see each other all day and ask how's it going, and come into someone else's office and say, I can't figure this out. But Jim had to do it by himself.
I was actually going to ask what that process looked like day to day scoring. Like, was it Jem working independently? Was it you guys kind of sitting there together figuring it out? So, Jem, like, can you tell us a little bit about what that looked like on a day to day basis as like your day job?
I would get a 3/4 inch. Back in the day, we used these 3/4 inch video cassettes, which were about the size of a Gideon Bible, and uh, I would I would throw that into a giant 3/4 inch video player, and then I would get I would get to look at the show, and the show was in varying stages of completion by the time I would get it, but the picture would be set. I mean, it's what they call a locked picture in the business. So
11 minutes flat.
11 minutes flat, and I knew at that point then they weren't going to change, although occasionally it happened, but for the most part they wouldn't change the picture. And interestingly enough too, just a sidelight, in the early days the audio of the voices was like some 8-bit uh, quality that makes an MP3 sound like the most high def audio you ever heard in your life. It was sometimes it was just like impossible to hear what they were what the actors were saying. Anyway, I get the
Yeah.
picture, and then basically my MO is I like to write the music from the beginning of the show to the end. So in a way, I would be discovering what the story was doing as I was watching the story. And a lot of times I just wouldn't even watch the episode, before I'd start in on it. That's not really the accepted practice, but it just happens to be the way somebody that's self-taught that doesn't know what they're doing. I would write a first pass of the score, and then I would send that back. I don't even remember what I sent you. I must have sent you like
Sometimes we'd sit and watch it together on a tape you dubbed it onto, and sometimes you just send it to me.
yeah, yeah. But I would get it back to Craig, and I would get some notes from him about things that I'd missed or things that we wanted to do slightly differently, and I'd make those fixes. And then at the end, I would have the live players, whatever live players we were going to have on the show, would come to my little tiny studio on Baxter Street in Echo Park, where I could actually stand there and I'm 5'7", and I could put my hand on the ceiling in the studio.
There's a place where you have to duck when you
Yeah.
when you go into the next space.
It's really tiny. People go onto my website. There are actually on the Knob World website. There are pictures of that original studio in there. But anyway, Nick Kyrgo, almost every episode, Nick was the guitar player, would come in, and then Bill Liston, who played all of the reeds and woodwind instruments on the score, would come, and Bill would come trudge up this second steepest street in Los Angeles, carrying 8 instrument cases, baritone sax and flutes and clarinets and tenor and alto, and then we would record the live stuff in the studio, and then I would mix it and then send it off to Tim Borges, who was our mixer, and Tim did the amazing feat of shoehorning all this music that I wrote with absolute total disregard for the dialogue.
This wonderful kind of battle between music, sound effects, and dialogue, and each of us had their representative in the room when we mixed. And I can't hear the music. Well, I can't hear the dialogue. And then Tim would be like, "But what about the giant explosion that's happening, guys? It needs to be heard. They're in front of a waterfall. Come on."
I mean, the quality of this music is unsurpassed. I mean, I was just, revisiting some of my favorite episodes last night, and the way that it punctuates, certain scenes, and the story arcs of these characters is just so beautifully done. So it's so funny to hear that you guys are just kind of crafting it and making it work, and as are most great things. I have a question for you, Jim. I heard something about, so the Hey Arnold theme, iconic, right? The opening theme is still such a great piece of music. I heard that you had originally ideated that tune for a Dunkin' Donuts commercial. Is that true?
Yeah, it's true. When I uh, was living in Boston in the 70s, um, I had a publishing deal, and one of the principals in the publishing company was a guy named Don Rosenberg, and his dad was the guy that started Dunkin' Donuts. So I thought, I didn't have two nickels to rub together at the time, and I thought, hey, maybe I can write a jingle for Dunkin' Donuts. And so I had this little melody that went, I got the feeling for a donkey today, a Dunkin' Donuts, Dunkin' Donut. and and I never played it for Donnie. I never made a recording of it. It just kind of stuck in my head. And it
Oh,
was
that's so funny. You didn't actually play it for
no,
them?
no, I never did. And it was
That's so
just
great.
it just came because it was something that came laid well under my fingers, on you know
Mm-hmm.
uh, that thing, and it was still I played it every now and then for fun. And then Craig and I pitched an idea for the theme song that was sort of like more Brat Packy, bad Frank Sinatra,
Arnold,
yeah, there you go.
you crazy cat. It was gonna describe him like Top Cat or some old 60s Hanna-Barbera kind of, well, meet the character.
Yeah.
Like Dino Spumoni, of course.
Yeah, it was very Dino Spumoni, who is basically a low rent Frank Sinatra.
Immediately when Craig started singing that to the executives, they started moaning and groaning. It's like, I don't think
Did
so.
we get to the end, Jim? I can't even
No,
remember if we sang the whole minute. They were just
no.
like, yeah, no.
Wow.
It was a great solution for sure. Also, I mean, you think about when you think of that tune, that thing that I love about cartoons is that theme, Arnold, you crazy cat. Also, you can hear the orchestra playing that in a moment that simply wants to let you know it's about Arnold,
Mhm.
or the theme. I mean, all those themes get used again and again, and they're all woven into the soundtrack, and I love that. That's one of the things I
Beautiful.
love about cartoons.
It's all about melody. We live in the world of the two-chord jam right now. Um, and and I love a good two-chord jam, and I love me some rap music, but one of the things that gets lost in all that, and the thing that gets brought into rap because people sample it, they'll sample a melody from Stevie or somebody and lay it onto their track because it's that special secret sauce that's actually the memorable thing. The two chords that they keep playing under there, or the change in the hi-hat pattern, it's not what people remember, it's the melodic stuff. And that was something that Craig and I were very specific about when we were talking about Vince Guaraldi and how we wanted to approach the show was melody. And that's where the emotion lies, I think, in anything. Which is why the jazz canon is built of the Great American Songbook, which is all
Yeah,
all melody
exactly.
straight up.
That was my way into jazz, was the songbook and the people who sang it, the
Yeah,
interpreters of the songbook, Frank Sinatra and Ella Fitzgerald, and that's how I learned my jazz.
When you become a student of jazz, I feel like, I mean, you don't have to do anything, but what a great place to start, that there are these standards and they are done so differently and interpreted so differently by all these different kinds of artists. And that in itself kind of really teaches you what you need to know about this medium.
Yeah, Chet Baker
absolutely.
singing something that Ella sang, they're going to be so different that you're like, wow, it's the unplugged one, or the lush orchestral one. That was really fun for me as I was learning those songs.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and to visit each one individually, that's so much fun. So actually, going back to the theme song, and this is for all the kind of, I guess, the jazz nerds. So I noticed, I think it's season 4. Does the song change? I noticed
Yeah,
there's
season 4.
right? It's season 4.
Yeah, the reason we did it was we would do 20 half hours a year, and for 6 years or for 5 years, but it stretched out. It was really about 7 by the time we got it all done. But every year they'd order another 20, and so we did season 1, season 2, and season 3. That got us up to 60. And then it was kind of a little bit of a sea change. We'd moved to a new studio. I kind of felt like it was a time for a refresh. Also, we went digital at that moment. We stopped having the all analog shot on film with hand painted cells, and went digital. So it just felt like there was a sea change there. And I asked Jim if he want to record it again. It would be an opportunity for us to do it again. Take it away, Jim.
So,
Should we have a listen?
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
The theme that you will hear is the theme that we did in '98, which is the revised version of the original theme song. And so play a little bit of that.
Hey Arnold!
Love that, the change, instrumentation.
Key change and now the crazy synth.
Crazy synth, but it does kind of have this like 90s vibe to it, right? So you guys are getting into what, like the late 90s at this point. Like a lot of things are changing around us. And you mentioned the shift to digital. So that all kind of makes a lot of sense there contextually.
My intention was to really make it a full big band arrangement of the theme. And Bill Liston, who was the reed player, who also did some of the big band arranging on the show, did a full out big band arrangement of it. But when it came time to mix it, I realized that it didn't have anywhere near the same punch that the all electronic or mostly electronic original version did. It really didn't feel that it wasn't as exciting. It wasn't as funny and, kind of kinetic. And so I ended up blending the big band stuff and the live drumming with some of the more synthy stuff. So the synthy stuff kind of plays the head at the beginning. And then when we get into the second time, the melody gets stated, then that's the full big band there at the end. A hybrid.
That's so cool. I love that, because live drums and live horns, there's nothing like it. And when we went to we recorded at a Capitol Studio One, Frank's old studio. And we were just, it's like a hallowed, you're in a sacred place, And so I was like, well, of course. But
actually,
yeah, Jim ended up going, I got to make it punchier.
You know where we did that? It wasn't at Capitol One. It was.
Oh, where was it?
It was at the Village Recorder. Which
you're kidding. The horns? Oh, that was when we did You Crazy Cat at Capitol One.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Exactly. Yeah.
all the sacred spaces.
Exactly. Our two chances to go slumming at somebody else's expense. We went to two of the best studios in the universe.
Oh, God bless Nickelodeon in the 90s, man. They had a lot of money. They were making a pile of money. And that is why we had so much freedom. It's why we had such an ability to express ourselves in our own way. And very little pushback, even, because everything they put on the air was booming.
I no longer have a track of the original theme song. It's not in my backups. I mean, obviously it's on the show, but I don't have a good recording of it. So that's been driving me crazy for a long time. I got to see if I can figure out a way to reconstruct it somehow.
I was going to say, is there an opportunity for you to ever maybe re-record it?
Well, funny you should say that. The last few years have been super, super busy for me, which I'm thankful for. But it looks like I got a little gap coming up here, and I really am committed to doing something with the Hey Arnold music. Certainly to try and do some recording, but also really to do some live playing. It's something we tried to do at Comic-Con a few years back when the Jungle movie was in the works. I wrote a bunch of charts, and we actually got a band together and played through the stuff, and it was really fun, and it was sounding great. And then
I got to do Dino Spumoni.
Yeah, Craig does a really badass Dino Spumoni, which you can also see. It's all over YouTube. So if you search for Craig Bartlett sings Dino Spumoni, you'll find it.
Because it's you that I adore. I'll smash the things I've missed before. I'll make a list, checking it twice. I'll put your diamonds on. Your wacky paintings on the walls. Wow, I'll smash them all.
Anyway, yeah, I'm really hoping to do some kind of live playing with the material. Nick Kyrgo is still, we've been close friends ever since we did the show. my son's a really good bass player, so we got the 3 parts of a good rhythm section to play this stuff. So fingers crossed. But Hey
So
Arnold live coming to a nightclub nowhere near you.
millennials will come. I think you guys know by now that my
Yeah.
generation is so devoted to these shows that raised us, and we're so much more true to life, right? Like that the show, and I'm sure Craig, you talk about this a lot, but the themes that you guys were able to tackle with such a mix of humor and just real life. I think that's why it stuck, right? And that's why the show still holds up, that a 37-year-old can put it on and just still get so much joy and so much meaning out of this piece of work that you guys were able to produce. So the
Yeah.
millennials, anywhere you guys go, the millennials will show up.
Thank
Yeah.
goodness.
Well, I would love to get into some more of the music. One of the most moving pieces, Lockjaw Blues. For anyone who doesn't know, it's a very poignant episode titled "The Field Trip."
Field
Correct?
trip.
Yes, where Arnold and his classmates, they go to the zoo, and they see this poor sea turtle that is being held in deplorable conditions, and Arnold just can't seem to shake this image out of his mind. So that's when him and his incredible and kooky grandmother decide to bust the turtle out to freedom. I just think, as an animal lover, then and now, I think that I still have these kind of visions of, like, when you see a lobster tank, just like, you know,
Right? Free the lobsters.
yes, I think that there was, there's so much humanity, and it was done in such a beautiful way. But you guys did not have to go that hard with the music. It is so moving. It is so beautiful. So I think that I'd love for us to give that a listen right now. Let me
Good.
just.
I'll set the scene. Arnold comes home bummed out. He runs the gauntlet of grandma and grandpa and heads up the stairs to lie down on his little couch, and he can't stop seeing Lockjaw. The tune is called Groove Remote. It's one of our favorites. It's something that Jim uh, wrote as a demo when we were making the pilot. Like the first demos, hey, here's a cassette of like 5 tunes I wrote. Does this work for you? We may have spoken about it when we spotted Field Trip. Like, you want to do a slow version of Groove Remote? Or Jim just decided on his own. But I was delighted. And then we recognized it as a Arnold is sad cue that we could use whenever we wanted. Again and again, we had it with the sax that you just heard, played by Bill. Then we had a Nick Kurgo version, played a very fat, like Wes Montgomery guitar version. And then we got to make the first Arnold movie, and it's called Sid and Stink, where Arnold has a long, sad walk through the neighborhood, and on and on. And then finally getting to the new version of Groove Remote that Jim had just recorded. So it's a perfect example of a melody that just serves forever.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Which actually the version that I just released a couple of years ago is the complete version that existed before I made the demo.
Wow.
It's got the whole melody. There's a hunk of the melody that never occurs in Hey Arnold ever, but it's actually a part of the original composition.
In the Confession mix?
Yeah, exactly. The one that's in
Which has a great, like, gnarly synth solo and then a really great guitar solo. It's just,
Yeah.
it goes on and on. It's epic.
Our fans are probably going to want to listen to the whole thing. So can you maybe direct them to places where they could either buy the music or stream the music?
Sure. The project that it came out on was called Little Blue Hat, which is a nod to Arnold and his little blue hat. And they can find it on Bandcamp under Jim Lang. Confession, the Groove Remote Confession mix featuring Nick Kirgo. So yeah, check it out. There's also a pretty cool video of that you'll find on YouTube of the same track with some video that I did for it, which is fun too.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Is there another musical cue that I think that you both would love to revisit while we still have some time?
So you think Invisible Hippo or
Serve it up, Craig. Take your pick.
Well, yeah. How about you know what? Actually, play the one Helga's True Love. Play that one because it has a funny story behind it. This is from Arnold's Valentine, and it's basically the slow, thoughtful love theme of the Valentine special.
I'm about to start crying. It's so beautiful.
We did that in the at my little studio on Baxter Street. That's Bill Liston playing two different saxes, as it turns out. I wrote the melody with a sax sample that played outside the range of any one saxophone. Typical, dope move for a self-taught composer. But Bill is such
A
a
good
wonderful,
sport.
such a wonderful reed player, and he played the bottom part of the melody. As I recall, what he did is he played the bottom part of the melody on the bari, and then the rest of the top part on a tenor, and he played them tonally so that I could glue the two of them together, and you'd never know it wasn't somebody playing one instrument. And he said people were calling him up, friends of his were calling him up and saying, "What did you play that on?"
So fun getting that kind of instant response by having a show on a channel that gets a lot of views. We
Yeah.
we were able to play something and then hear back about it, even pre-internet.
Yeah, pre-internet. Another one that I'd like to listen to. Grandpa Steps Out. The reason I love this is it's the three guys who were the horn section. All of the big band stuff we did.
As a person who loves 20s, 30s music, it's so iconic that every time we see Grandpa, that we get this kind of, this cue that,
Meanwhile, back in the 20s.
yeah, that goes back to his time. I mean, it's like, isn't that's what makes cartoons so great, that you're able to illustrate these characters in such multidimensional ways.
You get to cheat any way you want. I mean, we basically had it that Arnold was born in the, I don't know, the 80s, so he could be 9 years old in the mid 90s. But Grandpa and Grandma, they were 60s activists. They went to Woodstock, and yet he seemed to have been a child in the 20s, and so on. It's really fun that you get to. We had all of the 20th century, music catalog that we loved that we could dip into, and it didn't matter if you wanted to quote something that you loved. There's a lot of that going on. Arnold is nothing but quoting our favorite artists and our favorite musicians. It's just that it's okay in cartoons. One of the funniest things is the children that watched like What's Opera Arnold and heard Carmen for the first time. They'll think, oh, that's where it started. And the truth is, it started in the 40s when Warner Cartoons were doing all those wonderful classical music things. That's where I got all of my love for classical music, was by watching, Bugs Bunny. And we got to do it again just because enough time had gone by. And also that kind of wonderful Wild West of the 90s. Nobody cared what we were doing as long as we did it on time and delivered it. And it got good ratings and let us do these crazy, an opera and then a bunch of horror and then
Yeah.
and so on.
Yeah, my generation, again, we're so grateful to have been exposed to that kind of programming. I think a lot of people kind of scorn, some children's programming. They'll be like, oh, it's so one note, right? It's just like happy, everything's great, everything's fine, fun colors, which, of course, there's a place for that. There was this incredible music. There were these incredible characters, these very real storylines that looked like our lives, right? It looked like the lives of the kids that were growing up in the 90s, and it wasn't perfect. And going back, I mean, you talk to anyone, you go to a party, you talk to anyone my age, and that show has such a special place in their heart. And both of your like love for music, it just really prevails. And not just jazz, right? It goes beyond that. There's so much fun rock,
Totally.
like there's so many fun elements there.
Yeah.
For the fans, I do have a couple of questions as we close out for the fans. I grew up in North Jersey, urban North Jersey. So, obviously we were always like, well, this is like New York, like this is like, like Hey Arnold takes place in like where we grew up, right? And then you meet other kids like from wherever, some other part of the US. They're like, no.
No, it's Chicago.
Modeled on my city.
It's Boston.
Block the block. You're from Washington.
I'm from Seattle,
Yeah.
and I went to art school in Portland, which also made quite an impression on me. As a young man, I kind of that was when I was out taking photos of old buildings and deep architectural details. My dad was an architect, and so I'm very I'm very attracted to cool architectural spaces, and I was as an art student, I was a fan of Edward Hopper, the American painter, who did his work in the early to late 20th century. And I was just basically and really charmed by that urban space and that feeling of how cool it would be if Hey Arnold had a site specific vibe, which would separate it, help us separate our nod to Charlie Brown, because Charlie Brown was almost no backgrounds, and very suburban and nothing site specific at all, meant to be generic on purpose as an artistic choice. I thought, well, let's really lean into urban grunge,
Yeah.
and I thought of my neighborhoods in Seattle that I loved as a kid, and I thought of neighborhoods in Portland that I walked through as a starving artist, and also yeah, big nod to New York City because I had relatives and friends in Brooklyn and spent a lot of time in Park Slope
Mhm.
and the neighborhoods of Brooklyn down by the waterfront, that really the stoops and the
Yeah.
a lot of details of we have a Brooklyn Bridge. So yeah, absolutely, it's a made up city. That's what's really funny for me about that argument is that some of the fans right and they're like, "Damn it, it's New York, fight me," and I'm like, well, actually, it's a cartoon.
I live in Jersey City Heights, and I'm convinced this show takes place in Jersey City Heights, and all my friends are just the grown-up cast of
They're like,
characters.
absolutely, he was here.
Yes, big time. So actually, yeah. So where would you? So 29 years on, Arnold, he's like my age. So where would you imagine he is today? Maybe he's working in public radio.
Why not? Absolutely. Trying to keep public radio going, fighting the good fight.
He could be DJing, actually. I think
In Brooklyn.
that wouldn't be that much of a stretch, really.
Totally see that. We're working at like a cool like jazz listening bar. Maybe he's in Tokyo. Maybe him and Helga picked up
That's
and
right.
somewhere
They
really
would do
cool.
something entrepreneur. Gerald would help. He's very entrepreneurial.
Big
The three,
time.
the three of them have created a cool kind of gallery jazz bar space,
I could see
in
that.
Brooklyn or Jersey.
Oh my gosh. Thank you both so much for your time today. And I know our millennial audience and beyond will really appreciate everything you guys had to say today. So I'll be sure to make sure that people know where to find the music. And I do believe that there's a vinyl floating around out there as well. Is that true, Craig?
Yes. Hey Arnold, the music, Volume One, and we're very patiently waiting for the permission to go ahead and do Volume Two. The scarcity of the product, just makes people want it more. So that's my hope. All I care about is keeping the legacy of Hey Arnold alive as long as I can, because I always would do more stories if I could, and I'm sure Jim feels the same way.
Absolutely.
Most fun that we had collaborating on anything ever, and I think it was because it was so everywhere, so all over the place. It was well funded and handled with. They let us do our thing, and I think that combo.
Yeah. The other thing I'll just throw in there, it's kind of obvious, but we had the most incredible cohort. Um, for as a composer, when the stuff is well written, when it's good on the page at the very beginning, that makes my job so much more fun. And show after show after show with Hey Arnold, I got to score stuff that really worked, and that's magnificent. And then all the artists, the backgrounds,
Yeah, our
storyboarding.
artists, our leads were they're a bunch of geniuses.
Yeah. So
And
so there's all that too.
those actors,
Nothing
Francesca
happens in a
Smith, who played Helga, and Dan Castellaneta, who played Grandpa, and Tess McNeil, who played Grandma. They were so outstanding that they would inspired us always to go to new heights. If we wouldn't have written the opera if we didn't think those kids couldn't knock it out. So it was the actors grew with us, and all the characters were co-developed by these wonderful uh, little acting kids and super talented pros like Dan and Maurice LaMarche and Tress. We got to work with some people came in once in a while and blew our
Harvey
domes
Korman,
off.
Tim Curry is like, what?
We had
Bonkers.
so much fun recording Tim Curry.
You guys had fun. You put out something that was only really able to be done once in this lifetime, right? All of the elements came together. Not just you, Craig, now, like the legacy belongs to us all, and we will be carrying that. I show the show to the little kids in my life because I'm like, man, this
Thank you.
stands up. And all these lessons stand up. And it's just cool. And it's just like, you know, just a great show to come up on. Ask me how I know. So thank you guys both so much.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you. And I'll be sure that our fans get access to all these great tunes.
Fantastic.
Thank you. It
Thank
was
you.
great talking to you, Anna.